For the record,
Basilio Supos.
Diane Stefani.
Scott Nelson
Jim Baumstark.
Julie Moon.
Alex Demolovich.
and Dr. James Dolan is not here this evening. Now we'll move along to our approval section. Number one, I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
So moved. Moon.
Second, Baumstark.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None, so the motion carries. Next, I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve the regular and executive session minutes from September 16th and the public hearing minutes. Is there a motion and second?
So moved, Demolovich.
Second, Stefani.
Gabby, may I have a roll call?
Baumstark,
Aye.
Kemelovich.
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Stefani. Supos. Moon.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, I'd like to ask for an approval of the board self-evaluation executive session meeting minutes. Is there a motion and a second to approve the board self-evaluation executive session meeting minutes?
So moved. Second.
Gabby, may I have a roll call?
Kemelovich.
Aye.
Dolan. Not here. Nelson,
Aye.
Stefani. Supos.
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
Baumstark.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we're at our communications section. This is Dr. Deli's time to share with us.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome guests that we have with us this evening. We're going to hear more from you in a little bit. I just wanted to mention a couple of things this evening. First, the Illinois Principals Association has designated this week as Principal Appreciation Week, which is an opportunity for us all to recognize all of our principals and assistant principals in District 34. So on behalf of the administrative cabinet and our Board of Education, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our building level administrators for their exceptional leadership, dedication to our students and staff, and commitment to making our schools welcoming and caring learning environments. We appreciate everything that you do. Look at that lineup.
A lot of smiles.
They'll also be receiving a small token of our appreciation over the course of the week as well. So thank you for joining me in that. Second, and just as a reminder, we do have on November 5th, Glenview District 34 will appear on the election ballot to determine whether or not the community supports increasing the district's operating rate. Since the board's August approval to place this measure on the ballot, we have made several different efforts to communicate the information to our community, including a designated website with information and links, presentations, and translated flyers. We've been meeting with groups like the PTA Council, Chamber of Commerce, Glenview Education Foundation, Glenview Rotary, BPACs, District 34 Caucus, Farmers Market. We've been out and about trying to spread the word on this opportunity. A postcard was sent to all addresses in our boundaries on October 5th, with a second postcard that's going to be going out this week. I think behind me is the first one, right, Rebecca? Okay. That has all the information. Hopefully that looks familiar, because if you live in the community, you should have received one. If you didn't, that's okay. Please go to our website. Oh, and we even have some that you could maybe take with you.
That came to my house.
We did send a designated email with the information on October 17th. We will send a second one toward the end of the month that is specifically about the referendum question. We also have a summary video which can be found on our website as well. We hope our community has received the information. It's not too late, though. Like I said, the sources that I just mentioned here are places you can go and learn about the ballot question. We want people to be informed and to be able to make informed decisions. That's really what this is about. Should the ballot question fail, and this question has come up, the board and administration, as I've stated in the past, will once again need to identify additional areas of expense reductions, which could include non-mandated educational programs and services and the staff who currently deliver those services. We will deal with that when the time comes. We do not have a specific cut list, for instance, of things. We want to see how the referendum pans out. We have time to then redeliberate on what the next steps are. So this is all by way of reminder. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Daly. All right, next we have come to our audience comments section. This is the first opportunity for audience comments in this meeting. Anyone wishing to address the board can submit a comment card available at the check-in table and give it to the Executive Director of Communications and Strategic Planning, Rebecca Latham. As stated in Board Policy 2-230, public comments will be limited to 45 minutes. The Executive Director will call community members who submit cards forward. They will be asked to introduce themselves and describe their relationship with the district. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. But please know the board will be taking notes and we will be in listening mode only, and an appropriate response will be given in a timely manner. We ask that you submit one comment per opportunity. Rebecca, do we have any comments?
We do. Mr. Schultz submitted a request to speak to the board.
All right, Mr. Schultz? Can you come up here and speak into the microphone so people on YouTube can watch too?
Fantastic. Does it matter? It doesn't matter. Okay. Thank you for having me. Good evening. My name is Scott Schultes. I'm a new resident of Glenview and father of 2 girls that are ages 7 and 12 who attend Westbrook and Springman respectively. As a high school educator of more than 20 years, I never thought I would have the need to speak up in concern for my own children's education in this venue, as nearly all of the educational concerns that I have ever had personally as a parent for my own children, as well as in my experience as a teacher of other people's children, most of these can be taken care of at the teacher level. This has not been the case for my oldest daughter's experience with the Springman Band program, where I have tried to ask for the teacher, school, and ultimately the district to provide appropriate instruction for our 7th grader. It turns out the district is unable to meet our daughter's needs because she is a more advanced player, and only students who struggle to play their music receive weekly pull-out lessons with the director. If your child can play the music, we were told we need to hire a tutor to challenge our child because the district apparently cannot afford to do so. As we advocated for our child and spoke to the band director, assistant principal for instruction, associate superintendent of instruction, and ultimately the superintendent, we learned about some of the inequities and the lack of opportunity that we feel compelled for the board to be informed of. Number 1, the band director at Springman is in charge of meeting the needs of over 230 band members. For one teacher to have to meet the needs of each of these individuals is a futile ask. Higher administration has admitted to us that there's an FTE issue. Number 2, ATIA students are afforded the opportunity to challenge themselves with the opportunity to audition for a wind ensemble, which is an ability-based grouping. Springman students are not afforded this opportunity. The fact that ATIA students have the opportunity to challenge themselves and aspire to achieve higher goals than Springman students do is a glaring inequity that should have no place within the same district. All students of District 34 should be afforded the same opportunities to achieve, and not just the lucky few. Let me add that Springman is the only middle school feeding into Glenbrook South High School that does not have a wind ensemble as Field, Maple, and ATIA do. This puts our Springman students at a disadvantage if they were to want to participate in the music program at the high school level. I hope the board is able to act upon these inequities that exist within the programming of the district to ensure that all students have the opportunity to reach their full potential, and again, not just the lucky few who happen to live on the right side of the tracks. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. And amazing 3 minutes. That's great. You were right on. All right, next we will go to our consideration of resolutions. This is our consent agenda. We have the 24066 personnel report, the 24067 payroll warrants, and the 24068 vendor warrants. Is there a motion and a second for approval?
Second.
Gabby, may I have a roll call?
Nelson,
Aye.
Stefani. Supos.
Aye.
Moon,
Aye.
Baumstark,
Aye.
Kamalevich.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now we'll come to our consideration of other resolutions. We have the 24069 approval of the $50,000 matching maintenance grant.
Good evening. So this is another ISB $50,000 matching maintenance grant. We've applied and been awarded these in the past. This one would be going toward our roof work that we plan on doing next summer. So the ISB just wants to know that there's a commitment from this board for the initial $50,000, and then they'll hopefully approve us and match us on that 50.
Are there any questions? Any discussion? Could I have a motion and a second to approve the $50,000 matching maintenance grant as presented?
So moved. Moon.
Second, Baumstark.
Gabby, may I have a roll call?
Stefani. Supos. Moon.
Aye.
Baumstark.
Aye.
Kamalevich.
Aye.
Nelson.
Aye. Motion carries. Now we have the 24070 contract Easter Seals Specialized Coaching Cycle.
I can talk a little bit about that. We are so pleased with our relationship with Easter Seals, our partnership with them. And for this contract, we are just asking them to come on site here at ATIA to work specifically with a student with 6 coaching sessions to improve outcomes for this particular student before he heads over to the high school.
Any other questions? Information? No? All right. May I have a motion and a second to approve the contract Easter Seals Specialized Coaching Cycle as presented?
So moved.
Second,
Gabby, may I have a roll call? That was seconded by Baumstark.
Supos. Moon.
Aye.
Baumstark.
aye.
Kamalevich.
Aye.
Stefani. Nelson.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, now we have our ALAP presentation.
Yeah.
Can you tell everybody what ALAP stands for? Tim?
Sure, I'm going to invite our middle school team up here to introduce themselves while we talk about an update for this board on our Alternative Learning Opportunities Program, AKA ALAP. We can start here with Casey, do some introductions.
Hi, Casey Coker, Student Success Coordinator at Springman.
Hi there, Megan Chin, Assistant Principal for Student Services at Springman.
Mr. Kai, Student Advocate at Springman.
Evelyn Fuentes, Student Advocate at Springman.
Diana O'Donnell, Principal of ATIA. Heather Santella, Assistant Principal here at ATIA.
So we do want to update this board on our partnership with North Cook with our program ALAP, Alternative Learning Opportunities Program. And what it is, we came to you in June of 2023 to describe this great opportunity. It is a partnership with our Regional Office of Education that allows on-site advocacy for students and families at the middle school level. North Cook has some great programming at their site in Des Plaines. They have an ALAP program on site. But what we were looking for is advocacy coming to our schools to support our students and families in their sense of belonging and engagement in their school community. We started in the fall of '23 with ATIA, and then the winter of '24 with Springman, and so we are just beginning our second year. There's a clear alignment to our strategic plan. ALAP clearly speaks to the belonging and well-being. You'll hear a lot more about that as the middle school team talks. And also our strong partnership with the ROE is growing stronger by the day, and we appreciate being able to partner with them to provide this service. I'm going to turn it over to Diana to talk a little bit about why this program is relevant at the middle school.
So the purpose of the program is completely student-centered. We're including ways for students to focus on goals in the areas of academic, behavior, attendance, sense of belonging, and social-emotional skills. One of our biggest connections and belief based on the research is the idea that sense of belonging is creating a change in academics and self-worth and pride in what we can accomplish. So that's really along lines of our strand of social-emotional learning. On the next slide, just kind of walks us through when the program started. As Kristen already mentioned, we piloted for 6 months, and then we were able to have additional resources from ALAP because their program is growing as well, and they're providing a lot more resources around our schools in the area, including GBS, which is an also really cool bridge that we're developing for our 8th graders. Both of our schools have 2 advocates with full caseloads, about 25 to 35 students. So by trimester 2 here in both Springman and TIA, we'll be servicing over 100 students in the ALAP supports, which is a great number. We build in the advocates as a part of our school systems. They attend team meetings, they attend meetings with the leadership team. We also look at different supports and interventions such as coaching connections, and then ALAP to really partner with not only the students but our families. So we review our cases or our students' outlook and goals weekly, gaining more momentum for students that might be joining the programming. And so by the end of this trimester, we're moving much quicker than we have in the past. We'll have our 100 students met by the end of Tri 1 versus Tri 2. We have 2 awesome advocates. They're not here this evening, but Oscar Lopez, he comes to us with a background in paralegal work and also helping families with immigrations, and he is Latino, so he bridges that nice language and cultural supports for our families. Stephanie Villagomez is just added recently we did have a change in ALAP roles, so she just joined in and jumped right in, and she's an excellent addition to ATIA.
And now just to talk a little bit about our Springman advocates. We're really grateful that they're here tonight. Evelyn joined us in January, so she was here last year and is really a leader, really even in the ALAP program. So she's been amazing and has really set the foundation for kind of best practice. And we've learned together and we've grown together, but she brings just a great skill set. And then Kai joined us in the fall of this year. So we had, as Diana was saying, ALAP has grown, and so our other advocate actually is at another school now building their program. And so Kai came to us in the fall, and both of them have just been truly incredible. We've actually had other schools reach out wanting to come and see just what's happening. The natural ability to connect with kids and our families has been incredible, and really we're learning together. We're learning from them every day, so I feel grateful. I know we spoke a little bit about this, but I think just as a district, we've done a lot of work with our MTSS system, and so as our systems have grown, it's really lent itself nicely to expanding with ALAP. We work in tandem. It's a part of our system. Nothing is done in silos, so even their work is often done in partnership with administration or clinicians or family supports resources out in the community. All of that, I think, really is a testament to the systems we already have in place across the district, and without that, I think the program would not be as successful as it is. It's not a referral system, so it's not, I have a student who is struggling and they need ALAP. It is a team discussion, a team decision that comes through our systems, and so oftentimes it's reviewing what interventions have we already tried and why have those not been successful, and sometimes through that we realize ALAP isn't the answer, but maybe we missed something, and so we're going back to those pieces. After we see that we've really tried everything and this is going to fit a different need, we talk to the family, we have to obtain consent, and then there's also a goal setting process. And so with the student, what is the area that we want to focus on? I know Diana highlighted some of those areas already, but it's really student driven and individualized for every kid. And then just constantly reviewing data and making sure that we are seeing progress, and if not, let's go back and see maybe what we are missing and what we can adjust. So these are just some goal examples. Goals are usually set for the trimester, and so just as an example for attendance, we might be working on getting to school, increasing attendance, or it could be tardies, or making sure that students are attending all of their classes, or if there's a student who's struggling with that. And then for academics, again, it could be struggling in a variety of ways. Maybe it's with work completion, maybe it's engagement in the class, and so they can function in many different ways, and their support looks different based on students. It might be that they're pushing into the classroom and helping them. It might mean that they're doing a study group after school. They have students that they meet with weekly after school where maybe they're providing additional support. And it really is, like I said, individualized. And then again, 2 other examples just with behavior and social emotional support. So again, it's going to look totally different for every kid. You're not going to see goals that are copied and pasted. It really is what is the need of this individual student and family, and how can we best support them together. And then this is an example of just some of our data from last year. I was just saying to Matt before this started that I'm really excited to see this year's data just because we haven't had a full year and both of us have had transitions in our staffing for ALAP. I feel really excited and really just proud of the work that's happening, and so I'm looking forward to seeing it this year. But you can see we did see a lot of progress, specifically with SEL and behavior. Attendance is our area of focus. It continues to be. There's so many just environmental factors that oftentimes we are working to support the student, but also, doing home visits and trying to support other barriers. And so that's an area that still, I think, will continue to be our primary focus, but certainly we support students in all areas. And then you'll see too just the phone calls and home visits, as I mentioned, just that example. We do support students outside of school, whether it's phone calls or maybe we're going to meet a child and a family at home. We've met parents at work if that's what works best for them. It really just depends on the individual situation.
So a little bit about the day in the life. Before I talk about that, just the idea of community with the home visits and the phone call, that's a pretty significant number in the data. And I think that just shows the commitment of community as a part of this process. Well, I know there really isn't a typical day of the life of middle school. I'm pretty aware of that, and so as all of you are, but we'll just say this is the day in the life. But they're here to support students. So if a student is coming in with heavy needs or has a need of support, they're there. If they need to go to a home, they will go to a home, make sure we can get the student in for attendance. But in general, they're arriving here at school, getting ready for the students to come, greeting the students as they're coming into the building, saying hi, making those connections. Anyone on their caseload, they'll know if that child is in school that day or not in school that day, and then can determine their next steps for the day, which I think that is really awesome. They're going into classrooms, as Megan already mentioned. They're also doing observations of students in the classroom to work with the teacher to identify those goal areas, and working with that small group instruction for those pieces. And then they're in and out all day, moving very fast through all their grade levels and team meetings. The end of the day is also exciting with the high fives. And making sure they're off on a really positive note to go home. Many of the students that we might be working with are also in learning labs after school, so they're going to those supports and helping them with the academics at the end of the day, and really just continuing to build those relationships with family, to know that we're here to advocate for you if there's something that your child needs, and it brings a comfort level to many of our families, particularly our BL and our EL students. And so they're constant everywhere in the day of the life. As I stated before, we have very strong supports this year, just from a year of growing and learning together. Like I said before, we've got 87 students already in, so we're close to getting that 100 mark, which will be in a couple months. So that's really showing that the system is working, and we're getting the students that need the support within the MTSS process. So we're continuing to grow in those areas, and just it was a kudos to them as well. In our Panorama survey, many of our students are identifying these advocates as their trusted adult, which is a really powerful statement. So thank you for that.
All right. Some testimonials. I think there are a lot of students, and I understand the dynamics of that, but they have so many cheerleaders and supports in our students here who I think I welcome anybody just to come and watch these two in action, and to see it just from the lens of a child. But another testimonial, I just want to give Aura some praise. This would not work without the acceptance and the lack of territorialness that can sometimes happen in buildings with our staff. They see these advocates as part of our staff. They're not from a different organization, even though, of course, a different organization brought them in, but we really work together, and that has to be there for it to work. And we just continue to get lots of praise from students and staff and fellow administrators just from the progress they've seen.
I just wanted to share with you all, at the end of the day, I think one of the coolest things is watching the kids walk out of school. And Stephanie and Oscar are typically in the middle of our lobby atrium area, and these kids come down and just high fives around the world every time they come in and out. It's just like smiles, greetings, and they just become a member of our ATIA family. And they work so collaboratively with our staff members. It's very, very seamless, and they're just that extra layer of support that our students still continue to need right now.
Yeah. And their reach is beyond their caseload. I mean, we have lots of students asking if they can be on their caseload, but it's because they know them, and they are present in the hallways and in the classrooms. And I was just at a birthday party in one of our special education classrooms, and Kai's in there having a dance party. He doesn't have anyone on there on his caseload, but that child's important to him. And we see that from both of them, just their reach is beyond their role. They're really just a part of our community. And
Yeah, I would add that too, that they know every student in the building, no matter if they're on their caseload or not. And then I also would add, Friday, we're just coming off of parent-teacher conferences. So many parent and guardians during those conferences mentioned that their child is coming home saying, I love Mr. Kai, I love Ms. Fuentes. Like they are bringing that home to their parents or guardians and really showing their appreciation for these people as their trusted adults, which is always, aligned with our SIP goals. So we're so grateful for that.
One of the important things to bring up is always continuous growth and improvement as we roll out new programs or systems. One of the things that North Cook is working on is to get some better assessments to be more individualized and targeted goals for the students, as well as them going through professional development, which they have every Wednesday afternoon through North Cook, which I think is really important to bring up. And they're also working on individual lessons that target certain social emotional skills so that there's that teaching component where we can hopefully see more growth in those areas of any deficit or growth areas or to strengthen for some of the areas that we're targeting on those goals. So it's getting more detailed as far as what the sessions look like and what the small groups like targeted to skills that need fostering. So I think that's our area of growth. And these are just some pictures of our students in action and really bringing in the cultural and celebrations and just really there for the students and the staff at ATIA.
There's the dance party. Yeah, there's the dance party. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions?
First of all, thank you for the presentation. It's nice to see actual metrics and numbers and the types of goals and all that. Up until now, it was more abstract in my head, but now it's nice to see it like this. The only question I have is with the home calls and the home visits, are parents typically on board? Are they in alignment with the student success plans? What has been your experience so far with that?
You guys want to talk about it? Sure.
When we set goals for a student, they have to be approved by their parent before we put them into play. So typically, we will receive consent from the parent first to start working with a student, and then in collaboration with the student and their family, we set the goals. So the parents are well aware of what we're working on, and we update them constantly too as to what their progress is.
And so for home visits, that's typically a part of the student's attendance plan. And so parents, that's something that they've agreed to. And there's always nuances with that. Some parents prefer that we stay on the front porch. Some parents want us to come into the bedroom and help the child, get ready to get breakfast and time to go. So it's really just knowing your student and knowing the family and going from there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'm curious, what is the longer term plan with this kind of a program? Is it something that will be a permanent fixture, or is this like a pilot that will take over at some point, or it sounds great, so where is it going?
Yeah, our commitment was long-term, and so they typically say students are in the program for at least 2 years, so even some of the data that we show today is only after a year. And so typically, even the cost structure is favorable for us to do this long-term, and then we were thrilled to find out that GBS started their first year of the program, so kids can get that continuity as they move to the high school. So we're in it. I mean, you guys, correct me if I'm wrong, we would like this to be longer.
Can you remind us how the funding is actually secured and where we're pulling that from?
Yeah, and so the first year, we had a 50-50 split. So North Cook paid for 50%, and we paid for 50% out of Medicaid funding. And then after the first year, the cost dropped significantly, and we use a portion of our EBF funding for that. And I think it ended up being, when I asked how much that would be per student, about $30 per student from year 2 on. So really, the cost structure is so favorable, and the outcomes have been so great that we would like this to be.
Well, it sounds like they're also servicing students without, not even in their caseload. So if you count them in the mix, it's even cheaper.
That's good math.
And also, you mentioned how well they've integrated into the Springman and Atia families. I'm wondering, though, is the fact that you're from an outside organization, does that sort of create a cool factor at all for kids at all? Like,
I don't know that the kids realize
they don't realize that? Okay.
Yeah.
They're just cool.
Yes.
Anyone else? Well, thank you for your advocacy and support of our students. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
All right, next we have our multilingual services presentation. I've already seen this once, so I'm very excited to see it again.
Thank you, President Nelson, for inviting us. Thank you to the board for allowing us this opportunity to share with you a much shorter version, not the hour and a half that we presented to the Glenview Community Church to launch their Amos speaker series for an hour and a half.
Yes, that's right.
So we have a whole team here who will introduce themselves as they go through their portion of the presentation. But I do want to start us off by introducing to you our Westbrook principal, Patrick Hoft, and he can explain to you why the invitation, why the creation for this presentation.
Sure. First and foremost, thanks for having us tonight. Like Raquel shared, we are going to give you a very condensed version of what we shared at the Amos Speakers Forum. We have a group of individuals here that really are advocates for our multilingual learners, their families, for community members. And so we were beyond thrilled to have the opportunity to speak at the Amos Speakers Forum. And we were the kickoff event. It was a back-to-school type forum. I had the opportunity as the principal of Westbrook to be in the Leadership Glenview cohort during the 23-24 year. And so through that cohort, I was able to just build some connections with community members, business leaders, people across the educational settings in Glenview. And I made a relationship with someone that was a former GBS teacher, Alan Reuter, and we were invited. And it really was around his own curiosity, but also the curiosity of the community around how do we support all the diversity that we see in Glenview and that we are proud of in our community. And so what we have, like I said, is a very shortened version of that. We promise not to go long. We'd like to talk a little bit. But we do want to just offer this opportunity for any board member to really come inside the schools and see this in action, because this is going to be a small presentation, but I would welcome you to walk in the doors of Westbrook. I would be happy to show you around just so that you can see all of these things happening really on a daily basis. So I'm going to let the team take over.
Сайн байцгаана уу? Бүгдээрээ цаас аваад голоор нь нэг нуглаад тэгээд цаасныхаа нэг талд нь нүд зураад нөгөө талд нь чих зурх нэ. Well, how did you do? Were you able to understand my language?
No.
Were you able to complete the task that I asked for? Probably not, right? So I'm going to try the same demonstration, but only this time I'm going to use the comprehensive input strategies. And let's see if you are able to complete the task, how you're going to be successful with that. 남악 나라 гэдэг 나라. 자, бүгдээрээ урдаа байгаа энэ цаасыг аваад энэ цаас. Цаас аваад голоор нь нэг нуглаад голоор нь бүгдээрээ нэг нуглаад. За, энэ талд нь дотор талд нь нүд зурх нь байна. Нүд. Дотор талд нь нүдээ зураад. Окей, нүд зурсан тийм ээ. За одоо энэ талд нь чих зурх нь байна. Чих. Энэ талд нь чих зурна. Чих. Окей, чих зурсан тийм ээ. So, all right, how did you do this time for the second time round? Were you able to understand the language?
A little better, yeah.
Were you able to complete the task?
Yes.
So I was speaking in Mongolian, and how many of you guys can speak Mongolian?
I'd go with none of us.
So how many of you guys were able to complete the task for the second time around? Thank you.
Can you go back to this one? You're getting a little sneak peek of the Amos presentation. Thank you.
Becca, you had it there, it was just a different tab.
Oh, it's a different tab. It's called Board of Ed Recap.
That was our 90-minute version. We're going to 20 minutes.
Okay, showtime. Hi, everyone. My name is Hallie. I'm one of the multilingual coaches in the district. As you can see, the students in the district represent 60 different languages. A fun representation of the languages that they represent from A to Z are Arabic to Zulu. Next slide, please. Here are the top 10 languages that are represented by students in our district. After Spanish, we have Mongolian, Korean, Russian, Polish, and Ukrainian as the next 5. Multilingual learners are all students who speak another language at home. 34% of our students are multilingual, of which 47% qualify for English language services. 11% of the D34's English language students are new to this country. Next slide, please. Our demographics have become more diverse over the years. As you can see, it's very easy to read that small font. I'll give you a second. And thank you for your time. Now I'll hand it over to Raquel Kim, our Assistant Superintendent for Multilingual Services. Thank you.
So I want to briefly explain the types of services that we are able to provide our students. We'll start with Spanish language services. And we support Spanish bilingual English language learners through one program that is required and 2 that we are able to supplement. Seeing that we
are able to, we provide these services. But the very first one is the bilingual Spanish and English language instruction. We provide this type of support at all 8 of our buildings. Students receive instruction primarily in English and are provided Spanish support as needed. Over at Hanking and Hoffman, we do provide the opportunity for parents to opt in to a one-way dual language program where instruction is provided in academic setting for reading, writing, listening, speaking in both English and Spanish. That's held at Hanking and Hoffman, and students across the district who qualify for EL services and whose home language is Spanish can choose that particular program.
One quick question, does the, let's say Spanish instruction, does that happen in real time? I've always struggled with that notion. So the instruction happens in English, some students need support, is there another person in the classroom that provides that? Or?
So the teacher is providing the instruction in primarily in one language at a time. And many of our bilingual students are actually what we consider as simultaneous bilinguals. So they have a lot of English social language, but the academic is not there yet. And or their Spanish, they have a lot of Spanish social language, but the academic instruction of reading and writing in Spanish is being provided by the teacher. But we do have some newcomers from Spanish-speaking countries who have received instruction in Spanish, so that type of setting does support their needs by easing them into English. And then the other supplemental support that we provide to our middle schoolers, it's called Heritage Spanish Class. This is new this year. We piloted it last year, and it allows us to provide students whose home language is Spanish a different type of instruction to support their cultural development in terms of their heritage and a different way of learning Spanish because they have a lot of the basics, but they just need to develop the academic portion of it. And students from a dual language setting or students who never received dual language would be invited to the Heritage. The other language services that we provide are to our Mongolian bilingual students. We have over 20 at each of our buildings, Westbrook, Glengrove, Springman, so we are required to provide bilingual support, meaning instruction must be provided in Mongolian whenever the students need it. So we're able to do that in those 3 schools. And to supplement that support, we do also offer an after-school Mongolian program at each of those 3 schools where students are encouraged to continue to use the heritage language and continue to learn about their cultural identity. And also new this year is the Pathways to the Seal of Biliteracy at our middle schools. This complements what's going on over at our high schools and many high schools across Illinois. And we will be able to recognize them at the 8th grade commencement if they demonstrate proficiency in Spanish, French, or Mongolian. This is completely voluntary. Students are choosing to be a part of this acknowledgement, and it is very rigorous, and our hope is that we set them up for success when they get to GBS. And then now to turn it over to some of the instructional strategies that we use in our schools.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of build a little bit on the experience that you kind of went through and feeling like you weren't able to understand the instruction. So we're going to talk a little bit more about all the things that we do to make sure that our students that speak other languages are provided with opportunities to understand what's being taught in English. One way we do this is also supporting the teachers and students in the class in educating them a little bit about where our students come from and their cultural backgrounds. We've partnered with parents of Mongolian, Russian, and Ukrainian cultures and built like a toolkit slideshow that teaches them a little bit more about what school is like for them in another country. Like, did you know that in Mongolia, students stay with the same teacher throughout their schooling, throughout most of their schooling? And that class size is about 60 students. So just having that background as a teacher to know that this student is now going to go to a different class and a different class with different students every year And just as a teacher, having that background knowledge to know how to support a student when they come to us is really helpful. So as Nara had demonstrated to you, she used some, we call them comprehensible input strategies. So input, making sure that what we're doing, our kids can comprehend it. So we use a lot of visual elements. We use a lot of actions. There's all different opportunities that we use with our instruction. Some of that looks like, we call them like sentence starters, where we help kids start what they want to say. So maybe we would share with them, they would say like, my name is, right? Or I'm thinking of. We give them all these opportunities of ways to start their thinking, because expressive thinking is usually more challenging for our English learners. In many classrooms, we have co-teaching models where the classroom teacher is co-teaching with an EL teacher, and they use all different types of models where they're doing different stations. One teacher's teaching one thing, another teacher's teaching another, and they're differentiating supports, and sometimes they switch. There's so many different models, and like Patrick said, we invite you to come see it in action, because it's pretty amazing what our teachers are doing with our students on a regular basis. These are just some of the activities that we use. One's called the expert and the novice, where one kid is an expert and another kid doesn't really know much. And it's kind of like one is the teacher and they're teaching the other student. And they're learning how to use academic vocabulary. So not just they're practicing social skills, but also using that content, right? If they're talking about photosynthesis, that's a pretty deep content to talk about. So this really encourages our students to use language with the content that they're learning. And word walls is another way where we help develop vocabulary being used in our content as well. And I'm going to pass it on to one of our most fabulous preschool teachers and our preschool coach, who has some really cool strategies to share with you that she does.
Thank you, Lindsay. Hi, I'm Gina Hornback. As she said, I'm a preschool teacher and the preschool coach, and I'm excited to share some of the fun, colorful things that are really happening in the classroom and helping students to really understand concepts, both in academic and social contexts, as well as instructional strategies that we're using with visuals. And something I want to focus on during my time today is just that a lot of these strategies are beneficial for all students. It's not just students who speak another language. It might be our students with disabilities, and it might be just any child coming in the classroom that's new and they're learning the routines. So some fun things. So for example, say if I'm giving a direction that, it's time to clean up and then we're going to line up. If I'm saying that out loud, when we give a verbal cue, we say it once and then it's disappeared. But when I give a visual cue, it stays. So then I might be able to provide a gestural cue and just say. And I might give a cue with my hand too. I might be pointing and really sometimes slowing down even my instruction, because sometimes as we're speaking speaking quickly and giving a lot of directions, and when we can use a visual, that stays permanent for students and also allows them to be more independent. Some examples up on the screen are providing examples in other languages. For example, one of our preschool classroom has labels all in Spanish and all in English, and now many of our classrooms are starting to use labels in other languages as well as represented in materials in the classroom. But providing those oral language models, word banks with pictures, and I also wanted to share an experience that I was able to observe in a kindergarten classroom where the EL teacher was there supporting, and during that time they were using Seesaw, which is a tool we use to communicate with families and support student learning, and students were actually recording their voices about a story that they had written after drawing a picture, and then being able to share that immediately with their families and post it on Seesaw. And then the teacher can type a comment, which is then translated to the family all through Seesaw in real time. So there's a couple great examples there. And then on the next slide, a couple other fun things to share. This is our preschool snack mat. We use a lot of visuals all throughout, but this is not just in preschool, it's all throughout the building. And we're using these visuals to help support, for example, on the corner there, those are 3 of my friends from last year. There are 3 languages represented at that table, Russian, Urdu, and Spanish. But students are using this to communicate, saying, I like it, or I know I don't like it, as they're eating different snacks and just sharing conversations. So how we can use these to engage students together and really build that classroom community.
A couple other quick examples. Also from Easter Seals, we did a great training at the beginning of the school year. These first then charts where teachers can have visuals on the back and provide students with cues and be able to switch them out. It could look in different ways, or it can be also provided with an auditory cue. So I'm just going to press the button here what my students do.
First, I wash my hands, then I can play.
This has been really helpful for one of my students who speaks Korean. And first I would give the cue, and then I'd point to this, and now I have this posted in my classroom. You're welcome to come and see it, Westbrook. She comes in and presses the button, then she knows to wash her hand and follow those steps, and I can focus on that greeting with her. There are a lot more things I can share. I know we have a short time, but just a few, showing some instructional strategies too that we're showing for multi-step directions for students.
Thank you, Gina. So because we qualify for bilingual services, or our students qualify for bilingual services, we are also required to work very closely with our bilingual parents. So we're very fortunate to have 2 community coordinators to support that effort. We have a strong Spanish bilingual parent advisory committee along with our Mongolian language. And I would like to introduce you Flory, who supports the Spanish BPAC, and Nara, who you met earlier, who supports our Mongolian BPAC.
Hi, I'm Flory, and I'm the Hispanic Community Coordinator.
Hi, my name is Nara. I am a Mongolian parent coordinator too.
So we represent, not only in the district, we are interpreters for our families. We oversee BPAC, which is the Bilingual Parent Advisory Committee, which is a committee when there is 20 or more EL students in a school, in a school setting, sharing the same home language. So this is a way for the families to have a voice, a representation, and for the district to meet those families' needs within the school. So we meet with these families, we hear what they would like to hear, what information they would like to learn, and then we develop events or forums where we bring teachers, other community members to present that information to our families in Mongolian and in Spanish. And then we also have Spanish bilingual liaisons within Hoffman, Henking, Atia, and Springman, and they also serve as that bridge between the admin and teachers and the families, and they build that trust so that the families can go to them. They're their interpreters, they're there for parent-teacher conferences, IEP meetings, and they are also there to support families if they have to meet with social workers as well.
Good evening, I'm Sylvia. I support our multilingual families across the district. And one of the important ways that our teachers have already shared and our coordinators have already shared is building connections with our families. Often that starts with communicating in their language. And we know that because families let us know in a home language survey and when they register about their language needs. Nick Test doesn't need, at the bottom, doesn't need interpreting, because there is no icon for interpreting, although he has many other needs. He's a fake student. But he is a newcomer, apparently, from another country. That little globe indicates to our teachers and staff that this is a new student who recently arrived to our country. We use lots of technology, like Gina already mentioned, that embeds interpreting or translating. Seesaw lets us communicate with families, and they're able to see a message from a teacher or see a picture of something the student did in class with a caption, with a description in their language. We utilize SMORE newsletters, whether it's from the district, from classrooms, from school buildings at different levels that are easily translatable as well. And we're utilizing an app called Talking Points, which allows any educator to text with a family from their computer. They get a text message on the family's end, and they're able to respond and communicate in 2 different languages, but get the message across. So if I text a family in Mongolian, in English, and they get the message in Mongolian, they text me back in Mongolian, but I receive it in English, which I only know 3 languages, but we can't all cover all 60, so this helps with the other 57 that I don't know. And we have our interpreters and a whole team of people who help with document translation. Just like the board knows, everything that we communicate out goes out in many of our languages, and then we find options and opportunities for that to be accessible in other languages as well. And we partner with our community members and community organizations to build those connections and continue that learning outside of the classroom, whether that's in the public library, connecting with GBS, with Family Service Center, Youth Services. We have community connection fairs at the beginning of the school year. And these are just some of the examples of events that had happened. All those little pandas are dual preschoolers who came for a family reading time in Spanish. I believe it was in April last year with the librarian Gabriela. And they went for a visit. So they practiced something, and they met Gabriela in the classroom, and then on a Friday evening, they came with their families in these cute pajamas to continue that learning and make those connections in the community. And like Hallie mentioned earlier, we do have quite a number of newcomers every year. That means students who are new to our country, whether they have English skills or not. And we provide a 1-week camp for them in the summer where they get these awesome experiences that they carry into their learning. Like how classic all-American is it to go to a baseball game? So we pre-teach vocabulary before they go to a baseball game. They learn, they experience it, they go to Dogs game that day, and then they come back and play games and continue learning and have developed vocabulary that they probably didn't know about baseball. And so there's different experiences throughout that week that combine with learning vocabulary and experiences, extending it to their families as well. And we also utilize games to kind of make that experience something they can carry on and continue at home. Other examples of events where we involve families in our spaces are math nights and literacy nights. We're lucky to host them at various buildings using Title I money, Title III money, or GF support, excuse me. And we have had a creative family involvement, staff involvement, teacher involvement, to make these literacy nights and family math nights possible.
So that is really our entire presentation, but I'm sincere when I say you have a team up here, but the team is well beyond just the people that are sitting here that would be willing to host anybody to just see what we do on a day-to-day basis. And we just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to present this much condensed version, but there's a lot more to this. So if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer any of them or go into any further depth.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts?
Patrick, you know I'll come and visit you, right?
You know where to find me.
You know if you invite him, he will come.
Yeah, yes, he will.
I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. I really like the 90-minute version, too.
Thank you.
That was great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Now we get to talk about health and dental renewal rates, Eric, for 2025.
Equally as exciting, I think.
Not as much fun.
All right, so the district has the opportunity to meet with a subcommittee of COMPCO called the Insurance Subcommittee. And we typically meet every month and discuss our self-funded PPO health program and dental program, along with our HMO program. The subcommittee, typically looks at past trends, utilization, reviews potential improvements that we can make to keep making the program a little bit better, with the main goal of ensuring that the premiums cover annual projected claims, right? If we're paying our own PPO claims, we need to make sure that we're collecting enough on the front end to afford to pay those claims when they come in. Recently, we've been talking as leading up to this renewal for the 2025 calendar year, how the medical is performing, how HMO is performing, which has been trending slightly higher. Dental also trending higher than it has in past years, and high-cost claimants. So we do have stop-loss coverage, insurance that kicks in after any one claimant goes above $150,000. And so we track how that's looking. We do have a number of high-cost claimants that are expected, based on their situations, to be ongoing, so we keep looking at that. And also looking at the stop-loss renewal, the actual rate increase that we get. So we work with Gallagher, who helps us get through that process. And in addition, we've recently decided to join Gallagher's RX Collective, which is essentially within Gallagher a group of companies, districts that go in to try and lower their costs when it comes to RX. So we've been able to join Gallagher's Collective in that regard, and that actually helped lower the PPO renewal that we're presenting tonight.
Any
Please.
questions for Eric?
Oh, I was curious, with the rate increases, what was the general, view from the stakeholders with regard to the premium increases? Sort of as expected, resignation to it, concern, that kind of thing?
Great question. So just so everyone knows what we're talking about and what the recommendation is for tonight is that PPO plans increased by 9.9%, HMO 11.3%, and dental 6.2%. And so, given the makeup of the committee, who has to abide by the contractual provisions that talk about the board picking up costs over 6.25% increase, they're never excited about having an increase that's over 6.25%. So that means they have to pay up to that point. But I think they understand what's been going on and what's driving that, and it also fuels our effort to continue to try and see if we can't reduce costs. So one of the things that we did just a year or two ago was narrow one of our HMO networks. So we went to that Blue Advantage. And so for some who are interested maybe in more affordability or have to insure a full family, that's available to them. So that was something that we worked toward. We've actually looked at narrowing PPO networks, but at the time, it wasn't exactly worthwhile. The utilization of providers was on the lower end, but it's something that we plan on coming back to in the next year. And, Allison Evers, who's our representative for Gallagher, is good about, kind of tapping me and saying, hey, there's opportunities here. She happens to head up one of their big school district cooperatives, so we get the benefit of their co-op sort of exploring some of these options and then kind of bringing it back to Glenview. So something we've been taking advantage of, have looked, and will continue to look at in the future.
That's great. Co-ops and narrowing networks were two things that had occurred to me, so it's great to hear that you guys have already looked into that.
Yeah, the group's pretty good about engaging and trying to make sure we have affordable options, I think, mainly for the people that are insuring a family, because the board...
Yeah.
Has there been discussion about changing of the out-of-pocket, $1,000, $1,250, $3,300, they having more options for that or higher numbers?
So we did move to some higher numbers when we, about a year following the last teacher's contract. So I think we just kind of went there and provided that option within the last...
So you may revisit in the future?
Yeah, that's always something that I'm bringing up is...
Deductible changes?
It's just a matter of comfortability and options. So, yep, always talking about those things.
And you'll come back to us at the next meeting with this?
At the next meeting, we'll ask the board to vote on these rate increases for the 2025 calendar year.
All right, thanks. You get to talk again about the resolution to approve the 2024.
Scott, I was going to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm on this committee too, and I happen to work at a school. It's a smaller private school, but I don't know, just for context, we've seen similar kind of rate increases, right? It just kind of seems like it's what's happening right now. And in fact, these were a little lower than what I was even seeing, so I was like.
Because we probably spread our risk amongst the bigger number of belly buttons. Maybe?
Yeah, but, no, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
so, but it seemed in line with.
Maybe
what
we
I've been
could sell
seeing in
that
the
to
industry.
Jim's school. Oh, no.
I mean, aside from bigger risk pools, I'm not sure what other levers you could pull that you aren't already pulling, so. those aren't, you don't like to see numbers like that, but, I mean, I know what I've seen out in private industry, and you're doing better than a lot of, private employers are, so.
Good to hear.
I mean, I think it's also important that the staff understands that the healthier they are, the lower their rates will be as a group, too.
Exactly.
Not that you can control that sometimes, but.
Well, and I love that you've introduced the concept of narrowing networks and actually done it with HMO, because that is a big, big change management effort, but it can also save the stakeholder base a ton of money. So the fact that, you've introduced it and now the leaders of like the teachers and whatnot kind of know what's involved, that helps you down the road should that group decide, okay, yeah, we do want to do that change management effort to look at like a PBO with a narrower network. So, and that can make a big difference in this geography. There are significant differences between a bunch of our local networks.
Yep. And we're always looking at things like the step therapy, and constantly trying to not make people's lives more difficult, but ensure that that next step, no pun intended, is necessary. So, okay.
Everybody good with this for next month then? All right. Next, we have the resolution to approve the 2024 tax levy and schedule a public hearing for the 2024 tax levy.
Okay. So this is the 2024 tentative tax levy presentation. As always, I've got a list of definitions that can be viewed online at a later date. What we all know is that the tax levy is a certification by resolution of local tax revenue requested by this Board of Ed. It's important in our district because property tax revenue makes up 83% of our total operating revenue. Just a levy cycle for your review and sort of how the steps go throughout the process. But the school board passing the budget is the first step, because if you don't do that, then you don't have authority to spend funds or levy. PTEL, or the Property Tax Extension Limiting Law, came into effect in the mid-90s, and it limits the annual extension increase to 5% or CPI, whichever is less, as well as new construction. So we look at CPI history. And as you know, we've had some high inflationary years that we've just come off. Actually, this is the highest CPI run since PTEL came into effect. And I think that really says something, because we've been in a position to, even though CPI was actually higher, we were capturing 5%. And, in addition to these CPIs, we had ESSER funding, we had CPPRT that increased over sort of the pandemic years, and now we're coming off that. And so we're facing sort of a different cycle, if you will, as we go into budgeting and financial planning. So aside from CPI, we always look at new property. Obviously, that 2021 tax year was the Glenn TIF that came off.
Can I ask, going forward, you just take that off the chart, because it makes the rest of it doesn't really.
Yes, no problem. But typically, we see something more in line with 17 to 18 million. Remember, last tax year, we had the benefit of capturing new property from the expiration of the Waukegan Golf TIF. So that was, again, a little abnormal, and that's our last TIF. So the assumption is 17 million for new property going into 24. Some of the things we do know is that CPI was 3.4%. We know last year new property was 42 million. And we know last year the existing EAV increased by almost 4%. What we still don't know is what's the EAV going to be for 24, what's the Cook County multiplier, new property values, and therefore the final tax rates. So some of the assumptions, again, 17 million in new property, EAV flat, 100% collection rate. This board typically allows me to pass a resolution that directs the county clerk to reduce the levy just in the ed fund. So we're going to ask for a little bit more than we anticipate getting, but when they reduce it, please, county clerk, just do in the ed fund to not make it any more complicated. And years ago, this board asked the county not to add the loss and cost factor of 3% in the CAP funds. So why is the levy almost always more than the estimate? It's because we're forecasting these unknowns, and without knowing them, you might miss the opportunity to collect some of these dollars that are available under PTEL, and that will forevermore hurt this district. So we always ask for more than we think. So this is a little bit of a history on our request. The percentage that the request was over the prior year extension, what the actual levy extension was, and then the percent. So you see that, for example, last year we asked for 7.17% and got 6.5. So the recommendation this year, which assumes a successful referendum, is a 9.01% increase over the prior year, but the the estimated extension would only be 6.63% over the prior year. If, for some reason, this referendum does not pass, the increase is estimated to be 4%, it's 3.4 for CPI, and about 0.6 in new property. This is a little bit of a history and some percentages based on the tentative levy versus the estimated extension. But again, what we anticipate with the successful referendum is 6.63% in the CAP funds. The bonded interest extension is actually anticipated to go down slightly, with a total increase of 5.55%, again, with the successful referendum. For a home in Glenview that would have an estimated annual increase in property tax, a $500,000 home would have the estimated of $231 if the referendum is successful. If the referendum is not successful, that increase for that home would be just $150.
So in the context of the referendum that's on the ballot, technically, we're not asking people to pay $231 more. We're kind of asking people to pay $80 more on a $500,000 house.
Exactly.
Yes, the delta between.
The delta between what we would levy and what the referendum is allowing us.
Yes.
So that actually, instead of, like, where the referendum ballot question mentions $5 million more, I believe, correct? In effect, it's really more like $2.4 million from what we would already be levying anyway.
That's right. The $5 million is the total increase over the prior year extensions.
Thanks.
No problem. So just remembering, tax levy is just a request, and it's above the estimated extension based on the unknowns. It's all according to the PTEL formula. The extension will be increased across the entire taxing boundary. So one thing to keep in mind, individual tax bills may go up more relative to surrounding properties. So if your neighbor, happens to challenge their assessment, they get awarded, then in theory, someone else within the taxing boundary has to pick up that burden. Finally, the bond and interest levy is outside or above the CAP funds levy, which this board does not control, but rather that's done behind the scenes with the county. Next steps are to review the tentative levy request at the November meeting, vote on it, and then hold a hearing in December for the final levy request.
So based on the referendum ballot question, that number might be different. There was two different numbers right now.
Two different numbers. I think that because November 18th.
We'll know at our next board meeting.
Yes, yes, we will. So we'll come back with an updated set of numbers based on November 5th at the November board meeting.
Oh, you could leave that levy at that 9 point. It
You
just would just not get knocked down further, but
I think if we know.
it seems like it's overly, be too much. You're asking for too much.
If the referendum is not successful, I
Yeah.
think 9% is probably too much. If we know there's no.
Even though there's
chance-
no economic impact to asking for too much, because it's
Correct.
going to get capped anyway. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions on the tax levy schedule? All right. Next, we have the resolution authorizing a supplemental property tax levy to pay the principal and interest on outstanding limited bonds of the district.
And so we've done this every year for the last couple of years. All this does is ask for the CPI increase for the extension to pay our last DSEP bond that the board issued in 2022. So at the time, bond counsel wasn't comfortable putting in any language that would otherwise have us capturing CPI, so they asked that each year the board contemplates this resolution to just capture CPI above prior years so we can make our bond payments.
And that's because we issued DSEP, correct?
Correct.
All right, thanks. If there's any questions on that, we do that every year right now. Yes. Next, we have the press issue 115 for discussion. Is there anyone?
Yeah, there's.
All that stuff is in the.
Yeah, I'm sorry. All the documents are in your board docs here. There's nothing of particular import that I think is worth mentioning. A lot of these things are generalized updates that are provided by the press service.
I did like reading the one on, I think it was reimbursement
to board members?
Oh,
yes.
right.
Because, you know, every time a resolution is written, it's because it's something.
Exactly, that's
Your
right.
mind just immediately wanders.
Yeah, that's true. There's a little entertainment value, for sure.
And next, Alex.
Actually,
you
I
get
did
to-
have, just, one question there. I'm just more of a curiosity. It seemed like a number of the places crossed out regional superintendent of schools and replaced it with intermediate service center executive director. What's that about?
Well, we used to have a regional office of education in this area that encompassed a larger area. So now they broke it down into more intermediate service centers for North,
We're North Cook, right?
South, and West Cook. So it used to be a bigger entity, and then they broke it up into smaller groups.
That's how we've been operating. It's just that
Yeah,
the
yeah,
language is
the
catching
Yeah,
up.
they're just
Okay.
catching up.
Next, we have our strategic goal decision, which is a board discussion, and Alex gets to lead us on this.
Yeah. I don't know if I can turn this one on. Here's that too. I'll just be loud as usual. Oh, this is a fancy one.
Yeah.
Ooh, look at that. Okay. So Scott signed me up for this. So everyone will
You're
remember.
welcome.
Yes, well, I greatly appreciate it. Last month, we did our self-evaluation, as those of you who participated will remember. And coming out of that, we both discussed our assessment across the 6 foundational principles. We also talked about next steps, and the recommendation from the facilitator, as it's written here, identified a couple of goals from our strategic plan that, then aligned with the discussion we had on the 23rd, and build off of that into something that we could focus on for the year, perhaps longer, with aligned metrics and that sort of thing. So, and that's, all articulated here on the slide. So all I've put together here tonight, just for discussion amongst the board, is sort of what we would do as next steps. So after talking over a little bit with Scott, I think between now and the next board meeting, James and I would take this offline, sort of basically marry up that foundational principle discussion with the goals already in the strategic plan, and come back to the board with a straw man of which of those goals would benefit from the focus of this exercise over the year, as well as potential KPIs that would help us measure and monitor that as we go forward. So the idea being, we'll have that discussion at the next board meeting on that straw man. I think it's always useful to talk over a straw man if we can throw it away if it doesn't resonate with everyone and start over. But like I said, James and I will spend a couple of weeks working on that. We'll have some proposed next steps in terms of how to put that together, and timeframes, I think minimally for the rest of the year, but depending on what we find, perhaps more. So pretty straightforward, just to show that we're going to continue to work on that. and sort of move everything forward, so.
And this is sort of like a continuation of, what we did in our self-evaluation and how we want to proceed as a board while we link ourselves to the strategic plan. And thanks for taking the lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, came about, I took that action item as something to sort of look on. So I had sent Scott an email with just some thoughts because I had some extra time and looked at the strategic plan. And there's actually there's some areas of the strategic plan that align quite nicely with the discussion we had of the foundational principles. So I think it already started speaking to me. So Scott turned that around into an action item for me, so, which I'm happy to do. And I talked to James briefly. He's obviously very interested in it too, so.
Yeah, and James was one of our links to the strategic plan committee, so that's very helpful.
So for all of you, just based on this, any thoughts or concerns or, things that, you would have us focus on more than others as we kind of pull the straw man together?
Feel free to email Alex.
Yep, that too.
Any other questions or thoughts on that? All right. Next, we're at our audience comments section. Do we have any more audience comments tonight?
We do. I think my mic is also dead.
Okay.
Mr. Schulte,
Certainly. So this is our second opportunity for audience comments. You'll be asked to introduce yourself again and describe your relationship with the district, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Then the board will be taking notes and will be in listening mode only, and an appropriate response will be given in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm glad I had the chance to witness all the other presentations so I can have my time to speak here at the second half here. Anyhow, my name is Scott Schultes. Again, I thank you for your time and hearing me out. I'm a new resident of Glenview and parent of current Westbrook second grader and Springman seventh grader. This comment is geared towards advocating for the best opportunities for District 34 that they could afford for their students by offering students who participate in athletics the opportunity to compete in the IESA State Series. Currently, District 34 is not a member of the IESA, and as such, student athletes are not afforded the opportunity to participate in what are often the most competitive and challenging experiences in their respective sport at the middle school level. As a father and future as a father of a future track participant, I reached out to inquire whether or not Springman Track participates in the IESA series, and I was told that the program already offers the utmost experience to its athletes with opportunities to compete at Gemini Junior High and at Maine East Track at the end of the season at a conference meet. I failed to understand the logic of how providing additional experiences to compete in the state series could somehow diminish the opportunities that already exist for these young athletes. The cost to each school, Springman and Atia, would be $275 annually to be a part of the IESA, and it would cost $70 per athletic program to participate. It would require board approval and for the schools to accept the parameters of the IESA bylaws. I am more than happy to help fundraise or even pay all of the fees that would be required for the district to be a part of the IESA. As far as both the boys and girls track program is concerned, I understand that there is an additional time commitment for coaches to attend these sectional meets and potentially the state meets that are part of participation here. And I would be very happy to do the requisite background check and volunteer my time for both of these programs and help the athletes have the opportunity to compete at this event. And I say this because I've been coaching both high school boys and girls cross country and track at the high school level for more than 20 years, and I've been involved with the sport for about 35 years. Additionally, knowing personally the cross country and track coaches of both the GBS and GBM programs for nearly all of my educational experience, because I've been involved in coaching in this area, I would tell you with all certainty that these coaches would very much welcome the opportunity for their incoming athletes to have the experiences that come with participation at the IESA level, so that they are more attuned to what their experiences would be like at the high school level. So again, I would welcome the opportunity to try to help and support in any way that I could the community in bringing these opportunities to our student athletes. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for your comments and for all that information. We appreciate it, and we'll be getting back to you. All right, next we have our report section. We have the number 1 FOIA report, the number 2 construction change order, number 3 referendum expense report, the number 4 current year projection report, and the number 5 monthly budget report. Are there any questions about the reports or discussion? If not, is there any other business? I keep got to turn to my right, Jim. I keep shutting you off all night. I'm just too cold. Next, we're adjourned.